Today I have another endgame build for you, the Silvermane. I'm going to be doing one for all the characters. Now this build has already been tested. First try I managed to solo the first 2 floors on the Exalted Towers. I will be linking that video. There will be no gameplay in this video, but you can check out the link in the description to see me solo the first 2 floors of the Exalted with this exact setup. Now I'm going to be showing you how to set this up for Exalted, how to set it up if you're not doing Exalted. The ideal setup does require one of the long swords from the Exalted Tower, the Blade of Conquest, because this is a 2 long sword build. This is a Rampage, Polarity, crazy weapon technique, strength draining build. It is pretty fun to play. You can play it with Consume or without. Play it without if you're playing in a group, and if you're playing solo, you might need that Consume. By the way, I did those first 2 towers, first 2 floors on Exalted, first try, not even consuming anybody. I died twice, but yeah, pretty good for the first attempt. Anyway, let's get into the build. So you don't need the Blade of Conquest if you haven't done the Exalted Tower yet. You can use the Sword of Dominance, and you can use any other long sword. Now I say any other longsword, use your best one, because we're really looking for one perk. We don't even need crit chance on our roll. What we really are looking for is gain the greater blessing of luck when you inflict an ailment, and polarity attacks inflict ailments. That's the number 1 thing to get on both these rolls. The number 2 thing to get is apply the mark of fragility on both. Now, you really don't need it on both, you only need it on one, but getting it on both is even better. Besides that, your third one, what you're looking for, or your second one, is to not have the one that says your northern inflicts luck and your southern inflicts infuse, whatever that one is. If you have that on the roll, when you attack with your southern, you're going to get the lesser luck blessing, and that only grants 20 or 24 extra crit chance depending on your Ascension. I'll show you the Ascension ones to pick, because we are going to be extending that, so it is 36 extra crit chance for the greater blessing. So make sure your roll does not have the northern southern primary perk. Now, if you only have one and it has the greater and it has the northern, that's fine. Take it for the moment. But ideally, you want the greater blessing without the one with the northern. Other than that, yes, we still are looking for crit chance or weapon technique charge or polarity attack bonus. Not really charge speed, but charge speed is okay. Or rampage bonus. Those would be our top picks for the secondary. Now, for this, you're going to be looking at either this one right here or getting this on the roll with the 2. Now, ideally, I don't have this roll, but ideally what you would want is the drain enemy strength when you hit a cursed enemy, and the drained enemies deal less damage for 20 seconds, and you get increased damage for 20 seconds because you're going to keep swapping in between polarities and keep inflicting new curse damage and new earth damage. So what you want is the 20, and you want the one that gives you life back on critical hits with crit chance. That would be the God roll, and that would be on the Collabor's Legacy, or however you pronounce that. What you want over here is one of 2 things. You either want the apply mark of weakness, shield throws inflict ailments, and when you perform a critical hit, you gain more weapon technique charge. God roll would be critical hit and weapon technique charge. Or you want to take the one that is the primal one that gives you insane amount of weapon technique gain. Pick one of the 2. Both are really good. Moving on, we're going to be using when you defeat an enemy with your weapon technique, gain polarity attack charge, and your next polarity attack does more damage. What we're looking for here is weapon technique, charge speed, rampage bonus damage, polarity bonus damage, and weapon technique damage, or crit damage. Crit damage would be fine as well. God roll is the double weapon technique, charge speed with the weapon technique, rampage bonus damage because you're in rampage more, even if you can't get into polarity, and crit damage or polarity. Probably crit damage over polarity. Next, we're going to be going on to the ring, and we're going to be using the Eye of the Dragon. Try to get a good over health, 400 plus, 375 plus would be good. Definitely with the over health gain, we're ideally looking for 175 plus over health gain in the build for Exalted. Not really needed for not doing Exalted. You can have as low as 125, 100, that's all fine. This build is so OP with how fast you get your weapon technique back. You can just slide around the board, dash, and just spam weapon techniques. So, yeah, besides Exalted, it's not that big of a deal if you don't have a really high roll on that. And what matters even less is your Arcane tier. We're basically at 100% crit chance. We actually are. This is also a 100% crit chance build if you can get the crit chance on the weapon, and you can get the crit chances here because the Greater Blessing of Luck will grant us 36 extra crit chance, bringing us up to 100% crit chance. So I'm still trying to get those rolls, man, just to have that 100% anyway. Your tier isn't that big of a deal. You could go probably just with this one, just for the bonus crit damage when you use it. Or you could go for the one that gives you life on hit, because you're going to get back your over health, and maybe for the next couple seconds you also want to gain back health too, just in case you get hit before you can land that first hit. Either or is fine. What you're going for is weapon technique damage. I'm not sure if the weapon charge speed can be on this roll. I'm pretty sure it can. You'd be looking for that. Ailment power. This build does not require a lot of duration for how fast we spam ailments, and we're basically looking to delete versus actually stack up a ton of ailments and just have them sit on enemies. So we're looking for a lot more power, but a little duration is needed in the build. Then you're looking for critical hit damage. Once again, rampage bonus damage and polarity bonus damage. You're going to be going with the Plague Pennant because we're using two different elements. So that's on the high roll, 63 damage for each type of ailment. Going to be looking for all the same bonuses that I mentioned before. Here we have the stat page for my build and its current status. These are the exact stats from the video linked in the description. I have not changed anything. I'll be showing you where you can improve and everything you need to know. So once you reach a crit hit chance of 64, which is acquired by getting high rolls on the charm amulet and getting the double roll on the weapon, if you get 64, you have 100% crit chance every time you inflict an ailment for 20 seconds, and you're always inflicting ailments, so you always have 100% crit chance after your opening attack. So you want to get 64 ideally. Definitely above 40. We definitely want to be ending up at 75% crit chance minimal. Weapon technique bonus damage, the next one that matters. Minimum 400, ideally 450 plus. Ailments, power, roughly anywhere between 125 to tops 200 is fine. Duration, like I said, I just sold the first one Exalted with no duration, no problem. But I would probably recommend a little bit higher, maybe 50 or 60 on it, just for higher stacks in group play, so you can quickly stack one up, and then who's ever consuming, or you have to put the consume on yourself and just consume it real quick. So 30 is a little low. I would probably raise that to 50 or 60 ideally. takes a long time to go play around with the final stats. For your resistances, the number one resistance to actually get a higher value, ideally you would just use all the +6s, but if you did want to go for anything, Void would definitely be the top pick. Once you are knocked down, you can't inflict damage. If you can't inflict damage, you can't regen your weapon techniques, you can't regen your overhealth. Void is definitely the most deadly to this build, because even when we're going toe to toe, we're invincible during the southern and we can teleport through enemies on our northern. Physical isn't that big of a deal, but physical and fire would definitely be about tied for the second two resistances. If you did happen to get one, it's not that bad. Those would be the other two that wouldn't be that bad to have a little higher of a value. For our overhealth, for Exalted, we're looking at a minimum of 175 overhealth gain. If you're not doing Exalted, 100, 125, perfectly fine, more than good. Overhealth retained, if you're doing Exalted, probably around 150-ish minimum. And that is everything you need to know for the stats. I'm going to show you how to set it up for the Exalted Tower and for everything else. Now this is the Exalted Tower. We need to jump back up to max health, max overhealth as quickly as possible and remain there. So for the Exalted Tower, we do need to take the Void Shell so we could just stand there and tank hits while we lay in damage. Next up, we're going to be taking Fearless Wolf to lay some of that damage in. Obviously for this role, what you're looking for, by the way, is overhealth gain, 10 or 11 on the overhealth, and resistance, overhealth retention, maybe a void resistance, fire resistance, or physical resistance wouldn't hurt. For our damage, we're going to be looking at Fearless Wolf, double weapon techniques, ailment power. Then we're looking for Twilight Bloom. Once again, God roll will be double weapon technique, ailment power, then ailment duration. Then we're looking for Prime Paradise for extra weapon technique charge speed. Then we're looking for Rift for extra damage for our ailments. What we're looking for is overhealth gain and resistances. Same thing over here. This is less for the overhealth on the kill, but it adds with the other one, bringing you back up to max health off every kill. And we're taking this more for the overhealth and the resistances. And because we're swapping polarity so often, we're going to be taking both our blues and the cursed items for earth. Poison duration and earth damage when it has 8 or more stacks. So in between polarities, most times you're going to be stacking more than 8 stacks before you swap polarities, unless you have a polarized banner or you're using your Arcane Fury. So the timing is basically perfect to put on like 8 to 12 stacks, and then you swap polarities. By the time those stacks start to come down, by the time you switch back over to Earth, it still has 8 or more stacks, and you're just stacking more stacks. So because we're swapping polarities and swapping between Void and Earth so fast, we can actually run both of our spirits for the Earth setup. Poison sits there whether you consume or your friend consumes. Those poison stacks, they sit there for a very long time, and then when we switch to our Earth weapon, we're doing more damage. And not only do we do more damage, but once we have hit 8 or more poison stacks, even when we swap weapons, those 8 stacks, 8 plus stacks, will do increased damage. 83% increased damage, and if you get like a god roll like I did with these 2 extra earth damages, then you're looking at like 100 plus extra poison damage. So whatever your stack was doing, it's doing like 100% more on the ticks. So those 2 are really nice for the build. Then we're going to be taking more overhealth on the critical hit. This is a very cheap one to re-roll. Try to get at least like 94 plus per critical hit with the double weapon technique roll right there. Oh, let me show you the non-exalted tower build as well. I set that up for you. Not that one, that's just for gaining health back when I farm rolls. This is the more fun role to play. This gives you more weapon technique charge over here. Everything's the same. Now, if you don't already have the earth for one of your 2 weapons, and you're using like any 2 weapons, then you can put the 2 the shield charge on kill and shield charge on weapon technique kill. You can run those 2 instead and have a lot of shields to throw. Now, when you're not running Exalted, I would highly recommend, if you have it, to run the primal version of the weapon technique charge, because you don't really need the weakness. This build's so powerful to begin with that if you're not doing the Exalted Tower, it's just so much more fun to have insane weapon techniques. Like, just spam the shit out of them. When you run this and you run the 30 legendary, you get so many weapon techniques, it's ridiculous. I'm not sure why this is equipped right now. That was from another build. Didn't really work out that well for this build. Anyway, so that's the 2 ways you can run it for Exalted and Non-exalted. For both of them, we're going to be running the same shards. We're going to be running the Lionheart technique, which gives us orbs. And because we got so much weapon technique power, and I'll get into the stats in a moment, we're going to have tons of orbs, and we're in a group play. We're going to have orbs for our teammates as well. 240 weapon technique charge for 20 seconds is really nice. I'm thinking that the increased blessing might even increase this another 24%. Through testing, it seemed like putting it on in the it actually did increase it. In any case, 240 or 270, either or, is a huge difference. Just you just ramp up your weapon technique charges. We're also going to be taking the banners become supercharged when we perform a polarity attack. We're constantly performing polarity attacks. This works in our banners. This works in our friends' banners, giving us 100% weapon technique charge, and everybody else that's in the banner polarity attack charge speed, which lets us get insane polarity attacks while it's active, and shield charge speed. And that is for everybody. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to run this skill tree. It's basically the same. We're going to be running all the weapon techniques, all the mites, all the rampage, all the polarity attacks, everything besides the chance to get the mark of agility, because ideally we want that on one of the 2 weapons. If you don't have it on one of the 2 weapons yet, you can try to work a point over to be able to get that mark. Then we're going to be running all the Arcane Fury, all the critical hit. Vitality is going to be touched on in a moment. We're going to be running all the ailments besides Shield Bash consumes ailments. I'll show you the second way to set that up in a moment. All stats, all the recoveries, all the resistances. Now, I got 3 resistances, and I got Void and Physical, and I had Earth. So for me, adding 1 point into this to get the extra 5s made sense. It might not make sense for you, and you might want to move that point somewhere else. I removed the one from the Spirit, so that's where I took that from to get 15% more resistance, especially that extra 5 on the Void and Physical. Going to be running 1 on weak points just so we're able to get them, and 1 on the Evade for the better Evade. Going to be running all the banners and the explosive shield throw, because when we throw our shield, it can get crits. When we explode the shield throw, it can get crits. This is 100%, 80 to 100% crit chance build. Basically meaning every time we do an explosive shield and there's like 3 or more enemies, not only do we basically shoot up our weapon technique charge to max from any point after just using it, but we also shoot our overhealth up from none to full. So this is really nice for 3 points. Now, if you are going to be doing the consume, I would highly recommend taking a couple from Vitality, because we have the overhealth already, and maybe 1 or 2 from Spirit. Split it between Vitality and Spirit, or take it all from Vitality. Honestly, I usually take it all from Vitality if I'm not doing the Exalted Tower and I want Consume for a challenge or something. But you can get the Consume by simply taking 1 more in Ailment and 3 in Shield attacks. So you would have to remove 4 from Vitality, and Spirit would be my recommendation if you want to add Consume into the build. Moving on to, we don't need to touch on abilities. We will go to Ascension and Powers. We're not going to be parrying in the build, so we're taking Evade. We don't need Rampage expiration time because we teleport with the longsword. Take the Rampage charge speed. Don't need health. We'll take extra damage for ailment on an enemy. We'll take extra damage for our teammates. We'll take the improved blessings. We do not need duration because we're spamming abilities. We're going to take the extra shield charge though over damage because we do not care how much damage it does. We only care that it gives us weapon technique charge and overhealth, and occasionally knocks down enemies. So we do not need damage. Then we'll be taking the banner charge speed over the banner overhealth. This is an endgame build, should not need banner overhealth. Then we're going to be taking the improved our marks. So our marks do more damage, weakening more enemies. Then we're going to be taking allies deal more damage in our banners. Then this one is kind of like a toss-up. You could go for even faster polarity swaps, or you can go for more bonus damage. Well, how fast you get them, I'll just go for the extra damage. But this one is up to you. Personally, I go for the 20% chance to gain the Blessing of Endurance. But you could also go for power. That is also up to you. And for the last one, I would probably recommend for this build, it really doesn't make a difference on the last one, but generally if you're doing Exalted, 10% more damage to you is not a good idea. If the fight takes 10 seconds longer, you definitely do not want to go down. I can't count how many times I got down to like 10% health, and that 10% damage would have downed me. So ideally, if you're doing Exalted, I'd highly recommend this one, but that's up to you as well. And that is my Silvermane 100% crit Rampage Polarity. Really fun to play endgame Exalted build. I hope that helps.